The coastline of the Roman Empire in 117 AD flickered with torchlight, a thin glowing thread stretched across watchtowers and stone walls. Sentries scanned the darkness with the same calm routine they carried every night, expecting nothing more threatening than a merchant arriving late or a storm gathering in the distance. But tonight, the darkness carried something new. A faint vibration rippled across the sea, subtle enough to be mistaken for distant thunder, yet too steady to be natural. The guards leaned forward, straining their eyes at a horizon that refused to reveal its secrets. Then the sky split open. Two massive CH-53E Super Stallion helicopters tore through the night, their silhouettes barely visible until they were almost on the shoreline. To Roman eyes, these flying beasts had no logical place in the world. No myth, no oracle, no story prepared them for machines that soared like dragons but moved with mathematical precision. Before the guards could even shout, the helicopters dropped low over a narrow strip of firm ground near the marsh. They did not land. They hovered, throwing sand and reeds into a swirling storm beneath them. Ropes fell. 45 United States Marines slid down with silent, practiced movements, hitting the earth in coordinated bursts and sprinting toward the tree line as if the darkness itself beckoned them. Behind them, the helicopters lifted away, banking sharply before disappearing into the night sky. In seconds, the greatest empire on Earth was infiltrated by 45 strangers who had no reinforcements, no resupply, and no way back except through the path they carved. Their mission was nothing short of audacious. Destabilize the heart of Rome through precision, fear, and confusion. Not to hold ground, but to break the empire long enough for history to lose its balance. By sunrise, their chosen landing zone revealed its brutality. Dense humidity pressed against their gear. Mosquitoes swarmed. The ground sucked at their boots. But the place was perfect for hiding. They had landed in the Pontine Marshes, a sprawling swamp feared and avoided by locals. Roman patrols rarely traveled here. Roads detoured around it. Villages stayed clear. The terrain was hostile, but its isolation was priceless. Here, in this forgotten pocket of the empire, the Marines had one precious commodity: time. Not much, but enough to begin. They moved quickly. Extra gear was sealed in waterproof bags and buried deep. Sleeping holes were dug and camouflaged. Drones rose into the sky, scanning roads, fields, and villas from above. They carried M4 carbines with infrared capabilities, M18 pistols, grenade launchers, night vision goggles, smoke grenades, C4, and drones capable of mapping entire districts. But their supplies were limited. Batteries had to be rationed. Ammunition counted with obsessive care. Food was scarce. Every gram of equipment mattered. The platoon commander gathered his men. Their goal was clear: collapse the Roman command structure before the empire understood what was happening. They laid out 3 plans. A direct assault on Rome was dismissed immediately. They could never fight through thousands of Praetorians or hold the city. Sparking a rebellion was equally impossible. Rebellions take years, not days, and they had no allies, no interpreters, and no weapons to arm locals. The only viable plan was a shock campaign, carefully timed strikes designed to create doubt, chaos, and uncertainty. They would avoid civilian harm, attack symbols of order, manipulate communication, and disappear before anyone could respond. Night fell fast. Rome's greatest weakness revealed itself: darkness. With only torches, oil lamps, and moonlight, Roman visibility was limited. The Marines, however, moved like they owned the night. Night vision goggles turned the darkness into a green-lit map. Thermal cameras identified heat signatures at a distance. The ancient world had no defense against this level of awareness. Their first strike targeted Forum Appii, a small but important courier hub southeast of Rome. At 3 in the morning, they slipped through silent streets. Suppressed rifles whispered from the shadows. The stables burned. Courier documents were shredded. They took nothing, harmed no one, and vanished. When dawn arrived, the entire hub was paralyzed, its silence spreading doubt to the capital. The following night, they struck a tax collector's estate, destroying ledgers and scattering coins to mimic a panicked theft. The next night, they lit false signal fires on distant hills. Roman watchtowers responded automatically, sending signals across the countryside. But no follow-up messages appeared. No riders arrived. Confusion spread like wildfire. Rome's communication system, normally efficient and orderly, felt suddenly compromised. Rome responded with scouts, new checkpoints, doubled patrols, and urgent messengers. But the Marines used this to their advantage. They created false trails, planted misleading footprints, staged empty camps, and crossed major roads only at night. Roman patrols chased shadows. Drones mapped every movement, giving the Marines information superiority no ancient force could match. On the fourth night, the Marines performed a symbolic strike against an aqueduct. The explosion was controlled, engineered to break a support column without killing anyone or starting unnecessary destruction. By morning, water slowed in one district. For Romans, whose power rested on infrastructure, this was terrifying. Someone threatened the backbone of the empire. On night 5, a small Praetorian convoy traveling near Ardia was ambushed. Flashbangs burst like lightning. Horses panicked. Rifle shots cracked through the air. The skirmish lasted seconds, but to anyone witnessing it, the attackers seemed supernatural, fast, silent, precise. Rome had no weapons that behaved like this. News spread faster than truth. Stories grew in the retelling. Drones became metal birds. Suppressed rifles became thunder arrows. Night vision goggles became glowing green eyes. The Marines withdrew into the swamp, exhausted but successful. Their supplies were thinning, batteries failing. Some men showed signs of fever. But they still had one more task: infiltrate the capital itself. They studied drone footage of the Tiber River, mapping guard rotations, bridges, and structures along the palace district. On the 8th night, they stole a small fishing boat from a quiet village. They moved upriver in total silence, rowing past sleeping homes and dim torchlight. The massive city of Rome loomed ahead, a sprawling civilization of over 1 million souls. No one inside knew 45 strangers were drifting silently toward the imperial heart. They found an old drainage grate along the river wall, rusted and forgotten. A muffled charge cracked it open, and they slipped into the darkness beneath the palace. The tunnel was narrow, slippery, and foul, but it led exactly where they needed to go. After breaching a secondary stone wall, the Marines emerged beneath the palace kitchens. They divided into 3 teams. One extinguished lamps, released harmless smoke, and disoriented the halls without harming civilians. Another neutralized a guard post using flashbangs and non-lethal takedowns. The final team breached the regent's chamber quietly, without dramatic explosions. The regents froze, terrified, but the Marines used no lethal force unless absolutely necessary. Within 10 minutes, Rome's political core was in their hands. Outside, the city woke to silence. Watchtowers remained dark. No orders came from the palace. Messenger carts waited but received nothing. Officials panicked. The Senate couldn't decide whether this was a coup, an invasion, or divine punishment. Some senators argued for lockdown. Others demanded sacrifices to appease the gods. The Praetorians searched desperately for answers, but had none. Meanwhile, the Marines slipped out before dawn through an alternate tunnel, moving across quiet alleyways, boarding their hidden boat, and drifting away without a trace. They returned to the swamp exhausted. Hydration was low. Fevers rising. Batteries nearly gone. They couldn't stay. They couldn't hold Rome. But they didn't need to. Rome, confused, disrupted, and paralyzed, was breaking itself. The Senate split into factions. Some believed a foreign army had infiltrated the capital. Others blamed the Praetorians for staging a false takeover. Governors in distant provinces began questioning Rome's strength. A few considered withholding taxes. Trade slowed. Grain shipments stalled. Water flowed inconsistently. Panic turned into political fractures. Meanwhile, stories of the mysterious attackers evolved into legend. People described glowing-eyed warriors, thunder weapons, flying metal birds, and silent hunters who vanished before sunrise. The Marines became known in whispers as the Night Legion. No one knew who they were or where they came from, and that uncertainty created a myth far bigger than their actual actions. By the time the Marines scattered into small survival groups, Rome's political landscape was permanently altered. The Praetorians initiated sweeping reforms, doubling their night patrols, redesigning palace defenses, and establishing special units meant to counter enemies that fought like shadows. Temples debated whether the infiltration was a divine omen. Governors questioned Rome's ability to protect itself. Generals sensed opportunities for power. The empire, though still massive, now carried a crack down its spine. The Marines didn't need to plant a flag. They didn't need to hold territory. Their mission ended where it began, in silence. But the shock they delivered would ripple through decades. Rome would rebuild, but never forget the week when 45 invisible warriors bent the empire's confidence until it snapped. So could a single U.S. Marine platoon conquer the Roman Empire? Not in the traditional sense. They couldn't occupy it indefinitely. They couldn't govern it. They couldn't withstand the full might of the legions once word spread. But could they destabilize it? Unbalance it? Confuse its leadership? Break its rhythm and fracture its future? Absolutely. Conquest isn't always won through pitched battles or seized capitals. Sometimes conquest is a whisper left in a civilization's memory, a reminder that even the greatest empires can be shaken by something they cannot name. And if this scenario sounds astonishing, wait until a Navy SEAL team encounters 10,000 samurai. That clash will rewrite everything you think you know about ancient warfare.